Hello, everyone. This is Pam Moore, Director of the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. I'm also part of the New Mexico Wellbeing Committee, and I'm here to introduce Legal Wellbeing in Action, a podcast series offered by the New Mexico Wellbeing Committee. Last year was the first full year of the Wellbeing Committee at work. In identifying ways to bring well-being education and initiatives to the New Mexico legal community, we created a 2021 campaign called What a Healthy Lawyer Looks Like. 2021 is dedicated to educating the New Mexico legal community on a variety of well-being topics that pertain to work and home life. Our goal is that every judge, lawyer, law student, and legal staff person can find some aspect of their mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual health to improve upon. We strive to educate, encourage, and support the New Mexico legal community to show up as their best self in all aspects of life, which means we will be covering a wide variety of topics that relate to the whole human self. Thank you for being here today listening to Legal Wellbeing in Action.
Hello everyone, Tanessa Akins here. I am the Clinical Coordinator for the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program and also the podcast series coordinator. This month's episode will be featuring the topic of fear. As part of the 2021 campaign, What a Healthy Lawyer Looks Like, we are featuring monthly wellness topics in articles published to the State Bar of New Mexico's Bar Bulletin and airing each month's topic in our podcast episodes. To learn more about this campaign or to view the articles, please visit the New Mexico Wellbeing Committee's webpage at www.sbnm.org. For any further questions or to learn about how you can get involved, please email me, Tanessa Akins, at teakins@sbnm.org. I'd like to briefly introduce our speakers, Ms. Pamela Moore and Mr. Briggs Cheney. I'm so very excited to have you both speak on the topic of fear and to hear your thoughts and insights on how fear plays a role in our lives as professionals and as human beings. To our listeners, we thank you for turning into Legal Wellbeing in Action, and we hope you enjoy.
Well, thank you, Tanessa, and welcome everybody. It's good to be here today. We are doing another podcast recording of Legal Wellbeing in Action. And I'm Pam Moore. I oversee the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. And today we are recording a podcast on the topic of fear. And with me today, I have Mr. Briggs Cheney. Briggs, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you, Pam. My name is Briggs, and I've been a lawyer here in New Mexico for a long time. My practice is primarily the representation of lawyers, both in the civil arena and in the disciplinary arena. I have been long involved with the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program, which used to be the Lawyers Assistance Committee, and before that used to be New Mexico Lawyers Concern for Lawyers. Most people know, but for those who don't, I'm a recovering drunk. I've been long in recovery, and I suppose much of what you may hear from me today kind of flows out of that, my recovery, which now goes back about 24 years.
All right, well, thank you. So Briggs and I are going to be talking today about fear, and I need to tell the audience right up front that there's no script that we have today, that we had talked about a script, and that we had talked about, well, what about fear do we want to talk about? What about fear and lawyering? What about, where is it that we want to go with this big topic of fear? Because I really do think it is a big topic, and there's a lot of different avenues or roads that we could go down when we talk about fear. But we decided not to do that. We decided that we are just going to wing it and just start talking about fear. And it's something that you and I have talked about for years, for the last several years, Briggs. So let me just open it up right now and say, when we say fear, when we talk about fear, where's a good place to start?
Well, I don't know where a good place to start for anyone else is. For me, and you and I have have chatted about this. I have kind of come to a conclusion in my life that most of what I do and have not done in my life has been a result of fear. What has been interesting to me, and it was something I thought about over the weekend, and since we didn't have a script, I thought at least I'd think about something. And I was wondering, where it is something that fascinates me, but where did it begin? Where did fear start playing a part in my life? And one of the things that I really had not ever thought about before is I'm not sure when it was exactly that I realized just what a big part fear played in my life. It's always been there. I can remember as a little kid growing up in what was a farm town, trying to be a suburb outside of Chicago. And I remember vividly back in those days, the late 50s, early 60s, the Cancer Society had a big campaign, which they had the 10 whatever things that you had to be aware of about cancer, and I had every one of them. I was convinced I was going to have cancer, die of cancer or something. And that's maybe a silly example, but it's one that I remember. But fear has been there throughout. As I was mentioning to Pam, I don't think I really I don't know. It's not a matter of not think. I know. I didn't realize what a part fear played in my life until I got into recovery. And when I say recovery, that's not important. It's not what we're here about today, but I was a recovering drunk, and I went through all the things that many of us do to get into recovery. I often refer to it as I found a magic line in my life and stepped over it, and I've kind of been in recovery since then. But at that point, that magic line, which was, as I say, a long time ago, at that point, it was just about dealing with my struggle with alcohol. That started another journey in my life of kind of learning about myself. And in the beginning of my recovery, I started to learn about myself. This is not about 12-step programs or whatnot, but that's where I found my where fear fit in, and it was not immediate. It was probably years into recovery that I kept trying to figure out, why am I a drunk? Why am I an alcoholic? Why do I suffer from the disease of alcoholism? And I was looking for an answer, something quick and easy that I could explain the situation to myself, and it wasn't there. And as time went on, I began to learn more about myself, much of it painful. But there came a point in time, actually it was it probably was at a moment down at the prison where I often would take meetings, and I think I realized for the first time in my life that fear was dictating what I did and didn't do. And that started another journey, if you will. And you've mentioned, Pam, that you and I talk about it a lot, and that's it has fascinated me in a lot of ways, and scared me. Just how big a part of fear has played in my life. And so I guess that's it, and it's maybe, as we'll talk a little later this morning, it is a continuing topic in my life, and I continue to learn about it. I continue to deal with fear. I'm not sure that's the right word. I don't want to say I fight fear. I don't, because that's not what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's it's dealing with fear. Manage sounds kind of a glitzy word, but manage is not a bad word. But I continue to kind of address it every day. I don't know if that says too much, but
no, it's all good. So it sounds like, and I've kind of had the same experience with fear myself, is that for the majority of my life, there were painful moments, there was uncomfortableness, there was difficult moments. And I don't think that I would have classified or been able to say, I'm scared or I'm having fear right now, even though that's probably what was going on. And it wasn't until later in my life, and for me also getting in recovery, that I started to really learn about myself and learn about, maybe what was going on, what were my patterns, what were my belief systems, what were the stories I was telling myself. And in doing all that internal work, I started to maybe sort of like what you said, notice or say, wow, fear's has driven a lot of what I've done in the past, even though I didn't know that's what was going on. And so so I heard you say you've learned a way to deal with it, or maybe are learning a way to deal with it or manage it. But let's step back a little bit and let me ask you how it shows up for you. So there are listeners out there that maybe may or may not know that fear is driving their behaviors, driving their reactions, driving the choices in their life. And so how did you go about, one, starting to recognize it? How does it show up for you? And then let's talk about maybe how do we help other people learn how to manage it, or how to, because I don't think we're ever going to get rid of it. That is absolutely not going to happen. I think it's here we all experience fear, but I think it's around recognizing it and then how do we live with it? So how does it show up for you? Let's start there.
Okay. And if I go back a long ways, I probably dealt with fear the old-fashioned way, and that was you just, some kind of football mantra or something. You just dig down deep, and you come up with all the cliches, and I would get through some of those things in my life. A football game or something, and I would get through it and get to the other end, and that probably was a bad way to deal with it, because I wasn't aware of what it was. As I said, when I got to the point of having to deal with my addiction, with my struggle with alcohol, I started to look at my life. I mean, that's part of what you do. And I'm not here to suggest everybody's got to go to a 12-step meeting, but I started to learn about myself. And what was troubling to me as I look back at my life was I could get through a football game. That was one thing. But then I started to realize all the decisions I made in life. A silly example would be when I started school here at the university and picked a major. I had flunked French 4 times in high school, but if you wanted to take if you were on certain degree tracks, you had to take a language, and I was afraid I couldn't do it, and so I found the path that, to a degree, that didn't require a language, and I would not take courses or do things that I wasn't. This is the bad part for me, and I haven't even tried to think about all the choices I made that were dictated in the following way, and that was, unless I knew that I could do okay, if there wasn't going to be any failure in it, then I would do it. But it's all the things I didn't do. It's all those choices that, where would I be today had I had more had I been able to realize that I was not doing something because I was afraid, and I didn't know how to deal with that fear, so I took the path of, and it's not even least resistance, it was the path that I could, and this has become a big thing in my life, it was the path that I could control the outcome. And so I've lived a life. There have been moments when I've stopped and thought, should I regret my life? Should I feel bad about my life? Woe is me. I ask that question of myself on occasion, but I've been pretty good about not beating myself up on it. But where would I be? I'm content with where I am in life. I'm not complaining about that. But what have I missed? What things might I have experienced, but for the fear? And I can think in the practice of law. I was convinced that my getting admitted to the law school here at UNM was a clerical mistake. I mean, that sounds way silly to lots of folks, but it's true. I learned 44 years later, I think, that when I took the LSAT test and got the score back, my score was double digit, which was not good in those days. And I just figured I'm not going to law school. I subsequently learned that you had to make kind of a calculation. And so my score was not a double digit. It was better than a double digit. But I went through law school convinced that I didn't belong there, that I was literally a clerical mistake. I mean, and that does sound silly. It doesn't sound silly to me because I remember that. And when I got out of law school, it was the applications I didn't send in. It were the things I didn't think I could get accepted and or selected. I didn't take, and so I found kind of an easy path. It's not been a bad path. I'm content with my professional career, and I've worked hard at it. But I think of the opportunities I had to get involved in cases where I thought, no, that's for the really smart guys and gals in law school. You're not one of them. You can't go toe to toe with some of those people. And I would figure out subconsciously, I think, as I look back on it, I would come up with reasons why, oh, that's not an area of law I know. I'm too busy. I'm not sure I'm going to be paid. I have a whole host of things I would explain to myself about what I didn't do as a lawyer, and I look back on those, and it's I have some regret about it, but that's what when I started to realize what I had done in my life, how I tried to, and it was me. I can't blame anyone else. I was controlling what I did and didn't do out of fear, and I didn't connect what I was doing with the reason for it. So, and I've come to and this is the part that gets personal, embarrassing maybe. I don't get embarrassed easily. I embarrass myself frequently anymore. I'm not bashful about that. But I have, and again, part of getting in this part of my life, in recovery, which it's been probably the most significant thing in my life, and everyone's got their own. That just happens to be what I've found. But I've found I've become a pretty spiritual person, and I'm always quick to add on that I am not don't have a faith-based part of my life. It's just, I just don't. And as I say, other people find, what I've learned is that other people find their own ways. Mine happens to be spiritual, which is kind of a good word to use because people say, what's that? And you can hide a lot of stuff there. But that's part of how I've come to deal with it. To deal with it, to recognize it. I am every day having to work at how well again, I don't like the word manage, it sounds too professional. How I confront fear in my life. I think back, a silly example, I had the I was New Mexico's elected delegate to the American Bar Association's House of Delegates, which is, I often call it the Student Council for Grown-ups. But I did that for 9 years, and I would go to those meetings, and there were like really fancy people at these meetings, like former attorney generals of the United States, Supreme Court justices, solicitor generals, all these fancy people. And there would be invitations to events, cocktail parties, dinners, one thing or another. And I found myself early out figuring out a reason in my own head not to go. And I would say, oh, I don't want to go. That's just not going to be that's just going to be a waste of time. And I would come up with some excuse in my head. And at some point I realized what I was doing. And that's just an example I use. To this day, something will come up, an opportunity to go to something. Sometimes it's not an opportunity, sometimes it's maybe you should go to it, whatever. But I stop now, and whenever I'm making a choice, those kind of choices, and I'll stand still and I'll say to myself, are you thinking about not going to this event? Or are you thinking about not doing this event? Or are you thinking about not taking on this representation because you're afraid? Mm-hmm. Or is there some really legitimate reason not to do it? I am older now. Time is, as I often say, I'm closer to the end than I am the beginning. Time is, it's not like it's precious, but time is short. And so sometimes I have gotten to the place where I say, I just don't want to go to this event. I'm not interested in it. The people, they're obviously great people. They're maybe not good for me. I'd rather go take a bike ride, or if I can say to myself, I have a really good reason for not doing something, and I'm not being controlled, or it's not like fear controls me. I let fear control mm-hmm. me. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of those things I am today, finally, and I can't give you a date when it was that I had the epiphany at the prison, that I realized that it was all about fear for me. But I've learned to deal with it. I've been kind of intellectually interested in it. You and I talk about it a lot. Mm-hmm, it's fun. Mm-hmm. For me, it's fun to find people who are interested in talking about it, mm-hmm. because I get, that's how I learn. The one thing I've come to realize about fear is that you have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to face that fear, and you need to be you need to continue to learn, to be aware of it, and then to continue to learn some things that that help you. Again, I keep coming back to that damn word managed, because it sounds like I'm doing something very mechanical or methodical, and that's not what I'm doing. But maybe facing fear.
Yeah.
That's a good. So
yeah, I thank you for sharing all that, and I'm glad that you broke it down. I mean, you really did break it down in terms of so this is kind of what I took from how it shows up, and maybe when it shows up, it can be a for me at least. I think my mind starts racing a little bit more, or it feels like I'm just not completely calm and peaceful in my body. It feels like maybe my decisions or my choices are going to come from a place of not being grounded in making a conscious choice in how I want to respond to what's in front of me. And for me, fear shows up as maybe more of a reaction or making a decision that I didn't really think about, that I wasn't really conscious of. And so what I heard you say is when you get in that mode, you are able to recognize it now, whereas maybe you weren't able to recognize it before. So here it is. I am now recognizing, I'm now pausing, I'm taking a moment, and I have a decision in front of me, and I'm thinking about what choice I should make. And I know enough about myself, and I've learned enough about myself to know that I need to consciously ask myself, which is it a yes or a no? And I have to look at the underlying reason on which choice I make, in terms of, is my choice for saying yes, let's say, coming out of a place of fear, coming out of a place of avoiding, rationalizing, justifying why I should or shouldn't do this, because I'm trying to make myself feel better so I don't have to go into fear, right? I'm going to make myself feel better, right, by not going to that. And so, but then there's if I can recognize that, then I have the choice of, well, okay, so my natural reaction would be, don't go. Don't go, right? That's scary. Don't go to that. That might be scary. And we absolutely tend to avoid scary things or painful things or things that maybe we might, oh my gosh, I'm going to be embarrassed. I might be humiliated. I might have to talk to somebody. I mean, that's all scary. But if I look at that and I'm able to recognize it, then I can actually choose. Well, if I did go, can I talk to that fear in such a way that maybe I do need to go? Maybe it would be fun to go. Maybe it would be exciting to go. Maybe it would be an opportunity, a possibility for me to do this. And can I have, so being courageous is looking fear in the face and saying, I'm going to do it anyway. That is being courageous. So courage does not mean we avoid fear, but courage means we look at fear and we still move through it. We push through it. And I hear I hear you saying that is what you do. That is what you have learned to do, is that fear is going to be there, but now I'm able to recognize it. I pause, I breathe, and I really think about the decision, the choice, because we are all at choice all the time. What choice do I want to make? And am I making a choice going to that or not going to that? Taking the new job or not taking the new job? Entering into, some further education or not? Entering into a relationship or not? And can I make that decision out of a conscious choice of what is going to be the best thing for me now and in the long term, and know that the fear is there, but I recognize it and I'm talking to it and I'm saying I'm still going to make a choice, but it's not going to come out of fear. It's not going to be, the choice is not going to be based on fear.
The Solutions Group, The State Bar of New Mexico's EAP provider offers confidential and free professional counselors to support employees and their direct family members by offering short-term counseling, assessment, and referrals for any life struggle. This includes drug addiction, relationship conflict, anxiety, depression, and grief and loss. Other services include dependent care, crisis assessment, intervention, and educational presentations, free well-being webinars, and an online stress assessment tool. Call 505-254-3555 or 1-866-254-3555 and then identify with NMJLAP to schedule an appointment or video visit.
Did I kind of?
I'm not sure why I'm even here. You said it much better.
No, I'm just, and this, I've had to learn this process myself. I mean, but I heard that's, I kind of hear that's what you were.
You're saying exactly. Right. And something you said that I mentioned it earlier, and I hadn't really thought about it this way, but I always, you use the word courage, and I always kind of stray away from the word courage because that sounds so Vince Lombardi-ish. For those who don't remember, he was the Packers coach who was famous, I guess, for saying those kind of things. But there is, you're right. The thing that's been healthy for me is getting to that point where you can stop and say, if I can stop and say, I'm afraid. Fear is here, and that often makes me feel just very good that I can identify it, and then, as you say, to make a decision. And sometimes, courage does sound a little too Vince Lombardi-ish for me, but it is. Sometimes you do things, and it just is courage. It's just other times I've found other things I use to help myself, deal with those kind of situations. Going back to my silly example of the American Bar Association, a time or two I have sat in a hotel room thinking, at 6:10 and the event starts at 6:30, and I would have this discussion. I mean, it was just like I was the only person in the room, but we had this talk, me and me, and it would be, this is why you're afraid because you may have to talk to whomever it was that these fancy people, and what are you going to say? As I always used to tell people in the ABA, I'm from Albuquerque, and we're still waiting for Gone with the Wind to come to our local movie house. It's just I thought in my mind, people don't care about me and don't want to hear from me, and I'm going to make a fool of myself. But I would say to myself, that's what you're doing. And so I would make a deal with myself, and I would say, okay, it's 6:15, the thing starts at 6:30. You're going to go for 15 minutes, and you're just going to go, and you can leave. You're going to make an appearance, and I would have those kind of negotiations in my head about what am I going to do, and because I've learned to realize that, I mean, the bad part about realizing where fear plays in your life, when it wins, the hangover from, to use a good drunk word, the hangover of letting fear dictate what you do or don't do, I don't think it's not healthy for me. Yeah. And so but there are occasions when I'm able to say to myself, I'm not going to go. And sometimes if I can say I'm not going, and it's fear-based or it's this or whatever, at least I've had that discussion. At least I've been honest with myself. I try not to let fear dictate those things, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it's bigger than me.
I love when you said that at least you've been honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think if I go down another layer from that, why do we want to be honest with ourselves? Because our decisions will come from a place of feeling good about ourselves and feeling good about the choices that we've made. And I always think about, I ask myself when I do kind of make some big choices is the choice I'm making right now, the today me, making a good choice for the tomorrow me? Is today me right? Making a good choice that the tomorrow me would be proud of me for making. And so I also, do that one-way conversation in my head where I have to talk to myself. But I think if I can make a decision where the tomorrow me would be proud of the decision I'm making, the choice I'm making today, then I am being honest with myself and I feel good about myself. And even if tomorrow that choice ends up being a mistake, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now, I at least I know that in that moment, with all of the knowledge, skills, experience that I had, with everything that I had with in this moment, I know I made the best choice, right? And if there was any other information available, I didn't have it at that moment, because then I would have made a different choice. Because I think that's also the scary part for me is, am I going to make a choice that's going to end up being a mistake? And the answer is, yes, sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. But I think a lot of times we sit, or I do anyway, I will sit in a paralyzed state and not make a choice because I don't know which way to go. And so I'll stay stuck here. And because the fear is just paralyzing. And it keeps me right here where I don't make a choice. And it could be, months, it could be weeks and months. And I'm still stuck in this paralyzed moment without making a choice because I don't want to make the wrong choice. And the fact is, sometimes we do make a wrong choice, or sometimes we do make a mistake. But with everything that I have right now, do I feel like this is the best choice for me? And I think that's where the courage comes in, to just make that choice and to be honest with yourself right now. I mean, we could go very much into, I think a lot of times our choices are also motivated by shame messages that we've told ourselves over the years. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. I'm not as successful as those people. I don't know what I'm doing. And these are all messages that run. I look at it as like a current underneath our consciousness, but they absolutely drive the choices that we make without us being aware of it. It is an underlying current, that river, if you want, that if we finally get down to it and we look at that river, we look at that current, we can look back and say, oh my gosh, that is how I made that choice, is that current was driving my choice there. And so is the current ever going to go away? Not necessarily, but like you said, just recognizing it. I mean, that is humongous. That is so huge, just to recognize it and just to be able to say, oh, there it is. There's the message. There's the current. But now that I recognize it, what is the best choice for me to make? To be honest with myself and to move forward in a way that I feel proud of myself and I feel good about the decision I'm making.
And you make me think of several things. First, just listening to you, talking about fear, as I say, I enjoy it intellectually, I guess, but it's learning. I mean, your example of what's the tomorrow me going to think. Now, there's something I'll take away from today. I'd never thought about that, but I mean, I continue to learn these little things that come up that help me. I kind of put them into my toolkit of when I have that moment of recognizing fear. And that's, it was it came way late in my life. I mean, way after 50. So maybe that does confirm that my LSAT was low. But you mentioned being stuck. And anyone in my life that's been around me very long will get from me an image I've sent to you, and yes. I think to Nessa and a whole host of other people. And it's something I got somewhere, but it's a very simple image. It's got a 2 or 3 stair step thing, and it's a black dog that's stuck against, that's smaller than the steps, and it's stuck against the one of the steps. And what I've learned as a lawyer, representing, helping other lawyers, is how many of us get stuck in the practice of law. We get to a place of, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, or I'm afraid to hire that expert, and you freeze. And there is where the vast majority of mistakes get made by lawyers, is being stuck. And I'm fond of saying there are no wrong decisions. There's not really a right or wrong. I mean, there are some things in life that are pretty black and white, and pretty much you just don't do that. But very few decisions in life I've come to realize, or maybe a lot of this is kidding yourself. I mean, I'll tell you, I play hocus pocus with myself all the time about this, but I don't think that there really are right and wrong decisions. The only wrong decision is often not making a decision and being stuck.
Yeah. So we only have a couple minutes left. And what I would like to ask you in our last couple of minutes is, so a lot of legal communities out there listening right now, what advice would you give if you were to give, your yesterday self advice? If you were to give a young lawyer right now, any advice, what would you give them in a specific, when it comes to this topic of fear? What would you say?
Well, and I mentioned before we got started this morning, I mentioned to you, Pam, that two of the things that were in my mind coming in this morning were, I had forgotten how long it was in my life, or how long it took to identify fear as being the thing that was probably the biggest thing in my life. The other thing was that I continue to learn, just like this morning. You mentioned something that is as a takeaway for me, if you will. And we did a little article that goes along with this podcast. And the other thing I told you this morning was that I continue to learn. And I had dinner with you and your daughter and her significant other from. They go to school at McGill in Canada, and we had a lovely dinner. And I, as I say in my little article, I love being around young folks, that they're just starting out life. I mean, it's just fascinating to ask them questions, and they sat through a whole bunch of questions that evening, and on the way back home, Josh from the back seat said to me, so do you have any wisdom you could share with me tonight? And it was, because I had been questioning them all night, it certainly was fair for him to ask me a question. And I came back with something that was okay. And as I say in this little article, it kind of captured what I tried to say. But then the next morning, it came to me what was really in my heart, I think, and I wanted, and it was important for me that the next morning to tell this young guy, because it just felt important, because he had made me think, and I was able to capsulize it. But what I texted to him was that, don't do life alone. Find us something else. Embrace ambiguity and the joy of not knowing. I think that summarizes where fear is for me. And that's there, as I said a little bit ago, there's a personal side to, I think, how we all address and face fear. Some of it for me gets to be a hokiness, if you will. I flunked out of accounting in college, and I never could figure out why everybody got so agonized over trying to make all these columns add up and match and stuff. And I just thought,
it's called accounting.
Accounting, yeah. So why can't we just have a column or a thing at the bottom saying fudge factor, or you have to plug in $17.27 to make it add up. Who cares? And that's a silly way of saying, I come to a point where I can't explain a lot of things, and I've come to believe in a something else. Those two words, nothing more. I don't explain it any any more beyond it. I don't think about it any more than there's just something else. And I do believe if you go through life alone, and people do, I feel for them. I think it's sad to think you're the one, but you got to have a column where you can plug in the $17.27 that you can't explain.
Yeah.
And that's the something else. You've got to, at some point, if I get to the point where you, as you said it more articulately than I did this morning, where you have that conversation and you say, what am I going to do? And encourage is a good word. Or I often will close my eyes and say, I don't know who you are, something else, but I don't want to be alone. Yeah. And I get to that fudge factor, and I move forward, and I hope I don't have a hangover the next day.
All right, so I'm going to repeat this for everybody listening, these words. So don't do life alone. Find a something else. Believe in a something else.
Yes.
Embrace ambiguity and the joy of not knowing. Embrace the ambiguity and the joy of not knowing.
And as I also, for those out there who don't remember Gilda Radner, we all have the luxury of Google and DuckDuckGo and whatever. Yep. Google Gilda Radner and delicious ambiguity.
Love it. All right, that is all for us today. It's a huge topic. We could have talked probably for another couple hours on fear, but I thank you all for listening in. Again, this is Legal Wellbeing in Action, podcast series by the State Bar of New Mexico, specifically Wellbeing Committee and the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. And I thank you, Briggs, for being here today. Lovely conversation, always fun.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for straightening mine all out.
I don't think we straightened anything out. Anyway, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. This episode was produced by the State Bar of New Mexico's Wellbeing Committee and the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. All editing and sound mixing was done by Blue Sky eLearn. Intro music is by Gil Flores. The views of the presenters are that of their own and are not endorsed by the State Bar of New Mexico. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, or legal advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.